Welcome, FNusa57 here. Once again, I'm back on my Xbox Series X today to bring you yet another Elden Ring video. In this guide, I will be showing you how to get one of the top evasion Ashes of War, which is the Bloodhounds Step. This is, in my opinion, most useful in PvP, but also useful in PvE, depending on what weapons you wish to use. So this is going to be under part of my PvP gameplay set. And this one's a little bit harder to get, but you can get this Ash of War basically as early as you can defeat the boss that drops it. So the spot that we're looking for is going to be right in the middle of this bridge in the Caelid area. And thankfully the boss that we're fighting is a relatively familiar boss that shows up in multiple spots. It's the Knights Cavalry. So, shouldn't really be too difficult by this point. You should be fairly used to fighting him. With that being said, this is a boss that only shows up at night. And if you're trying to get this Ash of War very early in the game, then to get to this area quickly, what you'll want to do is go behind the third church, go through the Sending Gate, and that will pop you out right here at the Bastille Sanctum, and then run down towards the Farum Great Bridge, go to the right side and follow the hidden path, which is covered in poison traps, at least till you get to the bridge. It's easier if you just go ahead and unlock the grace site here at Lenny's Rise. Since this boss only shows up at night, then you'll want to just go ahead and pass the time until nightfall. And if you're doing this fight at a early point in the game, I would highly recommend bringing a friend or using a Ash of War to help you out. Either way, it's completely up to you. Basically, from the grace site, you will turn to the north and you can see the Knights Cavalry right there on the bridge. It's very important to note that this boss does not show up during the daytime. So it's a pretty interesting fight. Most of the time you fight the Knights Cavalry in a relatively small confined space, so fighting them on horseback can be easier, but generally the best technique I've found is to destroy the mount, to knock the knight off, and actually then open the knight up to a critical hit while they're on the ground. Of course, personal preference on exactly how you wish to do this, but since this knight jumps around quite a bit, it can be hard to lock onto him with spells. I do prefer this Glint Blade at least to initiate the fight. Spells that have a long charge up, like the Great Bow or other spells of that nature, aren't really that useful because this target moves around too much. So even like the Azor's Comet or Rock Sling, which I'm using right there, it's not really the best when it comes to fighting this guy. Even though Rock Sling does a massive amount of stagger damage, it's really not worth it. You can, of course, proc Blood Loss, because technically this boss is 2 individual targets, and you are capable of targeting the mount first, and then while the knight is on the ground, you can get a critical hit on him. That's probably the easiest way to go ahead and deal with that particular boss. Upon defeating him, after a second or so, you'll get the Ash of War Bloodhounds Step, and this can be applied to most weapons. It also gives them a dex scaling, which is really nice. It can be done at any site of grace, or if you don't want to lose the actual Ash of War, then you can go back to the Smithing Master Hugh, and you can use Ash of War duplication as long as you have one of the lost Ashes of War. You can use that to go ahead and duplicate the Ash of War that you currently just picked up, allowing you to equip it to more than one weapon if you just want to kind of have some fun with it. Now if I go to use the Ash of War, remember Ashes of War can be used on any weapon that's a standard weapon, if it's a specialty weapon, like, say, Rivers of Blood Katana, you cannot just put whatever Ash of War you want on there. But just to demo this, if you wanted to use this strictly for its evasion capability, you can put it on quite a few different weapons. But you could put it on a great sword. It doesn't really have too much of a limit other than it has to be a standard weapon. And of course, it can give it a dex scaling, which is pretty nice. But you can put it on any weapon that you want to. For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to put it on a lightweight weapon that I don't really care too much about. Which I wouldn't recommend because you're wasting a weapon, but that's alright. We're going to go ahead and give it that dex scaling as well. So now I have it as a keen short sword, and then I can demo the moveset. The most important thing about this is the evasion. Yes, the dex scaling is nice, but the evasion. The evasion technique is the most important part on it. So obviously, to use a skill, we have to have the weapon equipped as a right-hand armament, and then when you pull the left trigger, it allows you to use this dash ability. So the dash ability is very, very much similar to the quick step. However, the quick step does not really turn your character invisible, disabling the target lock for that split second. Plus, the dodge is not as effective. So you can use this going forward to close the distance to your target, which would be helpful in PvE and possibly PvP, but you can also use it to go backwards away from your target. It's a little bit harder to do, but you can use it to turn around and go backwards away from your target, quickly opening up a distance, and then you could use a magic attack or a incantation or something of that nature. But the biggest thing is while you're actually in that dash, you do gain a few immunity frames to avoid damage. So this and Raptor of the Mists are two of the best Ashes of War for evasion. And this one also gives you the best in terms of either closing the distance rapidly to strike with a left-hand armament or the right-hand armament, depending on what weapon you put it on, or just being able to open up distance and confuse your opponent. Between this and then the Raptor of the Mist and a few other little things for the PvP setup, you can make your character invisible about 90% of the time. So definitely look for my broken PvP build video. I hope that this guide helped you out, and if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you guys out. In the meantime, make sure you slap that like button and subscribe for more content.